The first-class cabin of Skylight Airlines Flight 237 was a vision of luxury plush leather seats, ambient lighting, and the faint clink of champagne glasses. Passengers settled in their faces, reflecting the privilege of their status. Among them was James Carter, a 43-year-old black man seated in 2A, his tablet open to a presentation he was refining. James, dressed in a tailored suit, exuded quiet confidence. He was the founder and CEO of Horizon Innovations, a $3 billion AI firm specializing in ethical technology solutions. Today, he was en route to deliver a keynote at the International Tech Ethics Summit. As the boarding process continued, a flight attendant named Emily approached James, her smile polite but strained. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice carrying a hint of condescension. "There's been a mix-up. We need you to relocate to accommodate a VIP passenger. This seat is reserved for our Diamond Elite members." James looked up, his brow furrowing. He had booked this seat months ago, chosen for its extra legroom to work comfortably during the 4-hour flight. "I'm a Diamond Elite member," he replied calmly, pulling out his membership card and boarding pass. "This is my assigned seat." Behind Emily stood Margaret Hensley, a white woman in her 50s, impeccably dressed in a designer suit. She tapped her gold watch impatiently, her eyes fixed on James as if he were an intruder. "I always sit in 2A, she muttered, loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. "It's practically my seat." The air in the cabin grew tense. Passengers glanced over, some reaching for their phones. Emily's smile tightened. "I understand, sir, but this seat is typically reserved for our most valued Diamond Elite members," she said, gesturing toward Margaret. "Ms. Hensley flies this route weekly and has a preference for this seat." James remained composed. "I'm also a Diamond Elite member, and I selected this seat for a reason. I need the space to work." He held up his boarding pass, which clearly showed 2A. Emily hesitated, then pressed on. "Sir, we'd appreciate your cooperation. We can offer you another seat in first class." Her tone suggested the matter was settled. "I'd prefer to stay here," James said firmly. "This is my assigned seat, and I've followed all protocols." Margaret stepped closer, her voice sharp. "This is ridiculous. I have a critical meeting after we land. I need my seat." Her words carried an entitled edge, drawing more attention from other passengers. Emily leaned in, her voice lower but still audible. "Sir, please don't make this difficult. We're just trying to ensure everyone's comfort." James met her gaze. "I'm comfortable right here. If there's an issue, I'd like to speak to the supervisor." The request seemed to catch Emily off guard. She nodded curtly and walked toward the front of the cabin, her heels clicking against the floor. Passengers whispered, and a few began recording discreetly. What none of them knew was that this moment would spark a chain of events that would shake Skylight Airlines to its core. James Carter wasn't just any passenger. Born and raised in a working-class neighborhood in Detroit, he had taught himself to code at 12 using a borrowed library computer. By 16, he was building apps that caught the attention of local tech startups. His father's death in a community tragedy when James was 17 fueled his drive to create technology that promoted fairness and equality. Horizon Innovations, founded in a cramped studio apartment, had grown into a global leader in AI-driven customer service solutions with a mission to eliminate bias in corporate interactions. That morning, security footage at the airport showed James helping a struggling mother with her stroller, tipping generously at the coffee stand and thanking every worker by name. His humility belied his power, but his presence in 2A was about to expose the cracks in Skylight's polished facade. Skylight was a premier airline known for its lavish first-class experience, reclining seats, gourmet meals, and personalized service. But behind the scenes, the company was struggling. Its booking systems were outdated, customer satisfaction was declining, and executives were desperate to secure a partnership with a tech giant to modernize operations. Unbeknownst to the crew, the man they were confronting was the CEO of the very company they were courting. Emily returned with the cabin supervisor, Michael, a tall man with a practiced air of authority. "Sir," he said, standing over James, "we need you to move to accommodate a VIP passenger. This is standard procedure for our Diamond Elite members with specific preferences." James looked up, his expression calm but resolute. "I've shown my boarding pass and Diamond Elite status. This is my seat. If there's a policy requiring me to move, I'd like to see it." Michael's jaw tightened. "Sir, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. We're trying to keep things smooth for everyone." "I'm not the one complicating things," James replied evenly. "I'm sitting in the seat I paid for." Margaret, still standing in the aisle, let out an exaggerated sigh. "This is absurd. I've flown with Skylight for years, and I've never had to deal with this nonsense." A passenger across the aisle, a young man in a hoodie, angled his phone toward the scene, capturing every word. Another passenger muttered, "He doesn't even look like he belongs in first class." The comment stung, but James didn't react. He'd heard it before. Michael leaned closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Sir, we can do this the easy way or we can make it difficult. Your choice. James's eyes narrowed slightly, but his tone remained steady. I'm not moving. This is my seat. The standoff drew every eye in the cabin. Michael straightened, adjusted his tie, and walked briskly to the front, picking up the service phone. The tension was palpable, and James returned to his tablet, his calm exterior masking the storm brewing within. 5 minutes later, the cockpit door opened and Captain Robert Hayes emerged, his face set in a professional mask. He followed Michael down the aisle with Emily trailing behind her, discomfort evident. The captain's presence signaled that the situation had escalated beyond a simple dispute. Sir Captain Hayes began standing beside James's seat. My crew has the authority to assign seats as needed for the comfort of all passengers. I understand there's an issue here. James looked up at the trio looming over him. Captain, I have a confirmed seat assignment and Diamond Elite status. I chose this seat for its legroom to work during the flight. There's no policy requiring me to give it up because another passenger prefers it. Michael interjected, his tone sharp. If you continue to be uncooperative, we'll have no choice but to remove you from the flight. James's eyebrows lifted, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. Are you threatening to remove me because I won't give up the seat I paid for? Margaret's voice cut through the tension. This is outrageous. I'm going to miss my connection because of this nonsense. I've never been treated so poorly. Captain Hayes adopted a firmer stance. This is your final warning. Move to another seat or we'll call security. James reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone, opening the camera app. I want to document what's happening, he said calmly, starting to record. I'm being threatened with removal because I won't give up my assigned seat to another passenger who wants it. Michael's face twisted with anger. He reached for James's phone, snapping, "Recording is not permitted." James pulled the phone back. There's no federal law prohibiting recording on a plane unless it interferes with crew duties. I'm documenting this for my protection. The legal knowledge threw Michael off balance. He withdrew his hand, his expression darkening. Passengers watched in silence, their phones now openly recording. The situation had crossed a line and the consequences were about to unfold. The heavy footsteps of 2 airport security officers echoed through the cabin as they boarded the plane. They moved efficiently, guided by Michael's gestures, directly to James's seat. The cabin fell silent, every eye on the confrontation. Sir, the first officer said, we've been informed there's a situation requiring your removal from the aircraft. James nodded, maintaining his dignity. I'd like to understand the specific policy I'm violating. I'm in my assigned seat with a valid boarding pass and Diamond Elite status. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Sir, you need to gather your belongings and come with us, the second officer said, dodging the question. James turned to Captain Hayes. Am I being removed for refusing to give up my assigned seat to another passenger? You're being removed for creating a disturbance, the captain replied, his words ringing hollow. A murmur ran through the cabin. An elderly woman shook her head in disapproval while a young man whispered, "This is wrong." James began gathering his belongings, closing his tablet and tucking his notes into his briefcase. He stood slowly, his posture straight, his expression composed despite the humiliation. Margaret watched with a smug smile, already moving toward 2A. Finally, she muttered loud enough for others to hear. First class should have standards. As James was escorted down the aisle, a passenger called out, "He didn't do anything wrong." Another announced, "I'm recording this," but the security officers continued leading James off the plane. As he passed Michael, Margaret slipped a folded stack of bills into the supervisor's pocket, whispering, "Thank you for handling this." The moment was caught on multiple phones, a damning piece of evidence that would soon go viral. In the terminal, James pulled out his phone and sent a text to his COO, Rachel Nguyen, removed from Skylight Flight. They chose the wrong person to target. Assemble the team. He then called his legal counsel, Sarah. "It's James. I need the legal team ready immediately. I was removed from a Skylight flight in what looks like a clear case of discrimination." The security officers lingered nearby, their confidence waning. One officer reviewed the incident report on his tablet, his expression troubled. "Sir," he said, approaching James, "there may have been a misunderstanding. The report says you were disruptive, but witness statements don't support that." James lowered his phone. "The misunderstanding wasn't mine. I was in my assigned seat when I was asked to move for another passenger's preference. When I refused, I was removed." The officer shifted uncomfortably. "We apologize for the inconvenience," he said weakly before retreating with his partner. A young woman approached James, clutching her phone. "I was in first class," she said. "I followed you off the plane because I couldn't stay silent. I recorded everything, the confrontation, the bribe, all of it." James's expression softened. "Thank you. This could be very helpful." They exchanged contact information and she sent him the video. What neither knew was that her footage would soon be viewed by millions, igniting a firestorm. Back on the plane, Margaret settled into 2A, sipping complimentary champagne. Emily delivered it with a deferential smile. "We're so sorry for the disruption, Ms. Hensley. We'll ensure the rest of your flight is perfect." In the galley, Michael counted the $200 Margaret had slipped him. "Nice tip," he murmured to Emily. Some passengers know how to show appreciation. Neither realized their actions had been recorded, nor that their jobs were now at risk. At Skylight's headquarters, CEO David Thornton was reviewing financial reports when his phone rang. "Sir," said the PR director, her voice urgent, "we have a crisis. A video is going viral showing a passenger being removed from Flight 237. He was a black man in first class, asked to give up his seat for a white woman. The crew accepted money from her." Thornton's face paled. "Send me the video." As he watched horror set in, the discrimination was blatant, the bribe undeniable. "Who's the passenger?" he demanded. "James Carter, CEO of Horizon Innovations," the PR director replied. "The company we've been pitching for a $60 million partnership." Thornton sank into his chair. Horizon Innovations owned 22% of Skylight's shares, a controlling stake with their partners. The man they'd humiliated held their future in his hands. In a private airport lounge, James sat with Rachel, his legal counsel, and his communications director. The video had hit 3 million views, and news outlets were covering the story. "They showed their true colors," Rachel said. "This is exactly why we vet partners so carefully." James nodded. "Call an emergency shareholder meeting. We need to address Skylight's culture." At Skylight's headquarters, Thornton convened an emergency board meeting. When James entered the room, fell silent. He wore the same suit from the flight, a reminder of the day's events. His team followed their presence, commanding. Thornton dimmed the lights and the viral video played. The footage was devastating. Emily's condescension, Michael's threats, the captain's weak justifications, and Margaret's bribe. When it ended, silence hung heavy. "Mr. Carter," Thornton began, "we deeply apologize for this inexcusable incident." James cut him off. "Apologies aren't enough. As your largest shareholder, I have 2 demands. Every staff member involved is terminated immediately, and the proposed partnership with Horizon Innovations is canceled." Thornton hesitated. "Could we consider suspensions? These employees have been with us for years." "This isn't negotiable," James said. "It's accountability, or I pull my investment and the $60 million contract." A financial analyst burst in, breathless. "Sir, our stock is down 15%. Analysts predict a 35% drop by close if we don't act." Thornton looked at James, the reality sinking in. The airline's survival depended on the man they'd wronged. In a conference room, Emily, Michael, and Captain Hayes sat in tense silence. The HR director entered with legal counsel and 2 security officers. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately," she said, placing termination letters on the table. Emily gasped. Michael's face reddened and Hayes closed his eyes. "We were following procedure," Michael protested. The HR director played the video. The bribe was undeniable. "Was accepting money to discriminate procedure?" she asked. Emily broke down. "I knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop it." Hayes spoke softly. "I trusted my crew's judgment. I failed." "You removed James Carter, CEO of Horizon Innovations, and our largest shareholder," the HR director said. "Your actions have cost the company dearly." Escorted out, the trio felt the sting of humiliation James had endured. In Skylight's auditorium, Thornton addressed hundreds of employees, James at his side. "Today, we failed a passenger," Thornton said. "This wasn't an isolated incident, but a symptom of deeper issues. Effective tomorrow, all operations will halt for 48 hours for mandatory bias training developed by Horizon Innovations." The announcement stunned the crowd. A 48-hour shutdown would cost millions, but it signaled a commitment to change. James stepped forwards. "This isn't about punishment. It's about ensuring no passenger, regardless of status, faces what I did. It's about building a culture where everyone is valued." Over the next months, Skylight transformed. Training centers sprang up, and every employee participated in immersive sessions confronting bias. James spoke at many, sharing his story. "This isn't just about me," he said. "It's about the countless others who face this daily without a platform." Emily. Michael and Hayes faced industry blacklisting. Emily took a job as a barista. Michael worked in retail, and Hayes retired, his career tarnished. Margaret was banned from Skylight and faced public backlash, her company suspending her. New policies were implemented: 0 tolerance for discrimination, clear seating protocols, and protections for whistleblowers. Passengers noticed the change. The crew treats everyone equally now, one said. It's like a different airline. 6 months later, Skylight was thriving. Passenger numbers rose 15% and employee satisfaction soared. James announced the Horizon Second Chance program, offering training and job placement for those who lost careers due to bias incidents. Emily, Michael, and Hayes enrolled. The program was grueling, forcing them to confront their biases. Emily learned to speak up. Michael unlearned inherited prejudices, and Hayes embraced teaching others. Emily landed a ground crew job. Michael started in logistics, and Hayes mentored in the program. In a private meeting, Thornton thanked James. "You forced us to change," he said. "Change comes from discomfort," James replied. They shook hands, partners in a new era. Skylight became an industry leader in inclusivity, setting a standard for others. James's vision of a world where people are seen as human first took root, proving that justice isn't just about punishment, but about progress.